I'm calling today's episode Enhancing the Image, Recovering Light and Saturation. Today it's TK Friday, and we're going to be working with the TK7 Go Panel. Stay tuned. Hello everyone, welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. Hey, it's TK Friday again. Boy, the end of the week sure comes fast. Today I'm starting out in Lightroom. Now this episode is called Enhancing the Image, Recovering Light and Saturation. I'm starting out in Lightroom. Now I have my typical basic adjustments already made here. In other words, I want to get the image looking the best I can, getting it into Photoshop. And I'm using the new linear profile that Tony Kuiper has made for us. And I hope you're enjoying your linear profiles. Hey, let me know in the description below what you think of these linear profiles. I know myself, I'm loving them, okay? I'm getting much better edits, I believe, by using them. But here's all my adjustments here, my basic adjustments. And then I opened up the HSL color tab and went ahead and tweaked up all my colors. And I highly recommend that you do that. I find that you'll get much better results when you take that care. And of course, I've applied no noise reduction or sharpening, and I've enabled my lens corrections and removed chromatic aberrations like I always do. And now I'm ready to send this into Photoshop, and I'll show you my new workflow for doing that. And I have a video that I've just made showing my new workflow when I'm using Topaz Denoise AI or Sharpen AI or both. So go back and watch that video. I'll link it at the end of this video so you can go and watch that if you haven't watched it. To get this into Photoshop, I'll right-click the image, and then I'll come to Edit In. Now, here's the difference. I used to go to Edit in Photoshop 2021. Now I come the whole way down to the bottom and Open as a Smart Object in Photoshop. And now we're in Photoshop. Now, to save some time, I went ahead and already applied Topaz Sharpen AI to this smart object. Now, the cool thing about this smart object is inside of it lives an embedded RAW file. So if I double-click this smart object, it'll send me into Camera Raw. Now, not the Camera Raw filter, but actually Camera Raw, and I can retweak my initial adjustments. And then after I accept those adjustments, it'll bring me back into Photoshop, and then my Sharpen AI filter will update itself, which is really cool. And you'll notice also on this smart filter, I have a layer mask, which comes with every smart filter. And I've just masked out the water because I didn't want to have any sharpening on this water here. Okay, so at this point, we're ready to start working on this image with the TK7 Go Panel. Now, do you ever wonder when you're working with the TK7 Go Panel, well, how do I start? And here is my answer to that. Let the image speak to you. In other words, what do you think this image needs? Now, to me, I feel I have this nice leading line of this water leading me back into this area back here. And my mind thinks like, what is happening back here? Now, there's some colorful trees back here. There's some nice light playing back here. We don't see the beautiful light right now. We need to enhance it and bring it out. So that's what I'm going to do first. Now, we can use zone masks, we can use luminosity masks, and I'm thinking luminosity masks because I got some nice areas back here that are light, and I think I can get those easy with a luminosity mask. But you got to try things. If the luminosity masks don't work, then go over to a zone mask. But I'm going to start out with luminosity masks. So I'm going to click this icon here, and right away we see a Lights 1 luminosity mask. Now, I'm looking for the light areas back here, and these particular trees are the light areas, like this tree here and some of these trees over in here. And these gray areas are darker tones back in here. I need to narrow this mask down, so I'm going to go to a 2. And that's doing it for me. Now, I'm losing some of my feathering back in here, so what I'm going to do is, I'm going the wrong way. This is the modify here, and this is nothing more than a levels adjustment. And if you're going the wrong way, things are going to go dark. And it centers itself here at 1. And that's where it defaults at. So start to move it to the left. And as I do that, see, I'm getting a little more detail back in here. So I don't want to lose my feathering. And then I want these light areas to get a little lighter. So I'm going to take this slider on the right and move it to the left. And it'll lighten up those light areas like that. I don't want to go too crazy. And then I can retweak this if I need to. And I think maybe right around there is hitting these light areas really well. Now what I'm going to do first off is get a curves adjustment, just like that. I'm not going to adjust this curve at all. I'm going to go ahead and shut this off. But what I will do is change the blend mode from normal to screen. And when I do that, all this area back here will get light. Now the entire image gets light, but I only want it to happen on these trees. So what I'm going to do is something called masking the mask. And if you watched my TK7 Go videos before, you know I like to use the masking the mask technique. So all we need to do is come on this TK7 combo panel and click right here. Now this group icon, we're going to put this adjustment in a group. You can put it in a group with a white mask or a group with a black mask. I'm going to put it in a group with a black mask. So I click on the left side here and that adjustment goes away. And now let's start to bring back some light. So we need to get a white brush. Right now we have a black brush. I'm going to click this icon right here. It's going to set me up with a white brush. I have 30% opacity. I'm going to build up the light areas slowly. So I'm going to like stroke this area once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. I'm going to come into these light areas back in here because anything that's light, my luminosity mask will enable those areas to get lighter. So I'm going to go ahead and grab areas that I want to lighten up. Now remember, every time I give it a stroke, it's giving it like 30%. Okay. So I'm just going to keep building up areas that I feel need to be built up on these trees over in here. And remember, that mask is protecting the darker areas. I'm only hitting the light areas. And I have that nice feathering on there, so I can build this up slowly. And take your time and get this right, because this is important. And I also call this like finessing the image, when you're really just taking your time and getting it right. Now, any light areas will lighten up. And again, over here on these rocks, there's some light areas here. I may want to bring some of these guys up. Over down here just a little bit. But like that. Now let's take a look. Here's the before and here's the after. So see how that light is there and it's drawing us back into this part of the image. And let me see, is there any more I can get in here? Okay, good. Now if you want to see what your mask looks like, you can click this icon right here. And that's what it looks like, what I've painted right there. And so let me go ahead and click this again. The next thing I want to do is add some extra saturation to the areas that I lighten back here. And I'm going to show you a little trick what I'm going to do here. First off, here's a trick. See the output here? This icon represents a hue saturation adjustment. Make sure you're on this curves layer first before you click that. And when you click this, it'll put a hue saturation layer above that layer. I'm going to hold my Option or Alt key down and click on this mask and drag it up here. In other words, I'm going to steal that mask. In Photoshop it says, do you want to replace that mask? And I say yes. And now that mask is replaced. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and bump up my saturation. It's only going to affect the areas that I have masked. You see that? So I can go ahead and bump up the saturation. I can get it up a good bit here because I really want to add some color back there. And then we also have lightness that we can, adjust the lightness further if we want to. We could do that, maybe give it a little extra lightness back in there. And then we could shift the hue if we wanted to back in there. I don't want to, so I'm just going to double click hue and set that back. But there you go. So here's the before the extra saturation, here's the after. But we stole this mask and that saves a lot of time. If you ever want to see what your luminosity mask looks like, just click on the mask and click that icon again and you'll see what your luminosity mask looks like. And then click this again and you're back. Next up, I want to darken this. The darker areas of this rock, I'm going to darken a little bit here because I have this area lightened up, but I want to keep our eyes I want you to see this, but I want to like mute this down a little bit, but just the darker areas of this area right in here. So I'm going to go back up to this icon in the TK7 Go panel for luminosity masks. And this time I'm going to find a darks mask that I like. So I'm going to click 1. That's way too broad. I'm going to just keep coming down till I find a mask that covers the dark areas here that I want. And because I don't want to make them too dark. And I think that 3, let's try a 4. No, I think a 3 will work. And I don't think I need to do any modification. So I'm going to go ahead and get another curves adjustment layer. I'm not going to do any adjustments on it. Let's hide this and let me change the blend mode to multiply. And that'll just darken everything up. Now I'm going to put that in a group. We're going to mask the mask again. That's a black group. And now I'm going to paint with white paint and darken these areas down here that I want darkened. And now with a white brush, I'm going to paint over this area here. I'm going to make my brush a little bit larger. And I'm still going to paint with 30% opacity. and just darken this whole area up, down in here. Okay, and there we go. So let's see, here's the before and here's the after. But you see that it just darkens that up a little bit, and it's just causing us to go back into this area right in here. Let's take a look at this mask. I'm going to click this icon, and you can see it's not white, it's gray, because remember, I only painted with 30%. So bear that in mind if you're wondering, why isn't that white? That's only 30%. And let's go ahead and click this again. Now remember, I'm letting this image speak to me. So what's happening now is I like where my rocks are here. I like my background being lighter. But now these boulders, my eye is going to these boulders, and I want to tone those boulders down a little bit. So next up, that's what I want to do, tone them down. I think I'm going to use a zone mask for that. So let me click on this icon here for zone masks. And now I have to, a color picker comes up, and I have to pick a color. So I'm going to pick like some of these lighter grays here. I'm going to click right here and click OK. And now I have a zone mask. And look how it really beautifully targets these rocks right here. And I don't think I need to do anything but just leave it just the way it is. And this time I will, I think I'm going to use curves layer again. And so I'm going to click right here. I could go to multiply. Let's see what multiply looks like. Multiply looks like that. Or what happens if I just pull down on the curve itself to darken it? You know, I could go either way. I think I can drag that point off. I think I'm going to go with multiply again. So let me just click on multiply. I think that's going to be good. Let's get rid of this. And let's go ahead and mask the mask again. Click that icon. We have a black group, and now we can just paint the areas of the rocks that we want darker. Let's go ahead and grab a white brush. I'm just going to click this icon, and now I have a white brush. Now that brush is way too large. Now I'm still at 30%, and I think I want to build this up slowly. Remember, I'm darkening areas of the rock. Like this rock is already kind of dark, so I may hit it once. Remember, every time I paint one stroke, it's 30%. Then when I lift my brush and then paint again, I get another 30%. I don't have to worry about the real dark areas because the mask will protect those from getting even darker. Okay, and I'll down through here. I like it. Here, I'm going to hit this a few more times in here, maybe a couple of times here. And maybe down in here a couple times. Over here. And I'm just making these decisions as I go. Maybe darken that up. Darken this up a little bit. And here. Any other areas? These rocks are okay over here. Okay, so I think that's good. So let's take a look. Here is the before. And here's after. But see how that tones it down? And now it's pulling my eye back through. The next thing I want to do is lighten up some of these leaves down here in the foreground and give them a little extra saturation. Now, this is more of an artistic reason here. I just want to add a little bit more saturation and lightness to the leaves. I think it'll look nice. And to do that, I'm going to get another zone mask, and I'm going to click one of the leaves that are light right here and click OK, and that'll create my mask, and that is really separated out beautifully there. Now, if I need to narrow that down, I could take this slider and move it into the left if I felt I needed to, but it's really good. Or if I need to lighten these selections, which I don't, I could move this slider to the right, and you can see I can lighten them up. But I'm going to leave it right in the default area in the center here, and I don't need to modify it. But what I want to do, again, is I want to lighten those leaves and add a little bit of saturation to them. So I'm going to do that all with one adjustment, and that's a hue saturation adjustment. Because remember, a hue saturation adjustment has hue saturation, but it also has lightness, which is really cool. Now what I'm going to do is add saturation. And now there's going to be other areas of the image that will get saturation other than this area down here. But I don't care because I'm going to mask the mask again. So I'm going to look down here, pull up my saturation. Not too much, but somewhere around there. And I want to lighten those again. I want to lighten those leaves up a little bit. And I'm going to do this all with one adjustment. Now I'm going to add a little extra saturation. I think that looks pretty good, lightness-wise, pretty good. Here's the before and here's the after. Okay, so I like it. So now we're going to mask the mask. So let's click this left side of this group icon to put a black mask on there. Okay, let's hide this property. And now we'll get a white brush again. And again, I have 30%. And I can go with the larger brush here and just paint over here. And I'm going to even come up in here. Let's paint all through here. 30%. Let's see what I got here. Actually, I could have stole the mask that was here and brought it up there, but that's okay. But here's the before and here's the after. So it lightens them up a bit. I'm going to make my brush a little larger this time, and I'm going to hit it another pass. Okay, just like so. Now let's take a look. It's a little lighter. Remember, it adds another 30%, and I think that's good. I don't want to go too much. Now, if I felt I went too far, remember, I have this overall opacity. I could pull this off and just build it up slow and just get the right amount. And I think I may do that. I may have went a little too far. I'm going to go to 80%. So here is the before and here's the after. But I like that. I think it looks nice. So far, I'm happy with everything. The only thing I think I need to do now is darken this water. I think this water is a little bit too light. So the darker areas of the water, I just want to darken up. Okay, and remember, this is my leading line up into here, and I'm really happy. So what I'm going to do here is grab another zone mask and click one of the darker shadow areas of the water, maybe right here. Click OK, and let's take a look at that mask. Now, we can narrow that mask down. Let me see what happens if I narrow it down a little bit. Yeah, let me narrow it down somewhat, and we can make that lighter or darker. Let me see if I want to darken it down a little bit. Maybe somewhere around there. I think that looks pretty good. Do I want to narrow it a little bit more? Nah, it's too much. Maybe somewhere right around there. Now look, it's missing all these areas up in here, okay? Now remember, I'm only worried about the water, but this time I'm going to do a little bit of burning. And so I'm going to use, here's my burn icon right here. Now you could put it on a blank pixel layer or you could put it on a gray layer. I'm going to put it on a gray layer. Either one works, but you can see what I'm actually painting when I paint on the gray layer. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. And we can see we have a gray layer and it sets me up with black paint. I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller, not too much, and I have 30%. So remember, I'm burning now. So I'm burning with black paint. So I'm going to darken this whole area up in here. And I can be kind of sloppy here because the mask is protecting me and back into here. All right. So there we go. Let's take a look. Here is the before. And here's the after. But you see that? It just darkens that up a little bit. Now, if I option click or alt click this eye right here, we can see what I've actually painted. You see how beautiful that mask has worked there? I'm going to option click this again. Now, I just got to make sure, is it dark enough? Here's the before and here's the after. And I think it is. I'm happy with it. The last thing I want to do is just add a little bit of a vignette around the entire image. And I'll use one of the TK actions. It's found right here in the TK actions here. Click right here, and I'm just going to do a basic vignette. I'm going to click on vignette, and it's going to set me up with a Gaussian blur. I'm just going to accept it the way it is. I'm going to click OK. Now you'll notice it sets me up at 50% opacity. I think that's a little too dark, so usually what I like to do is shut it off the whole way and then just build it up slowly. I just want a very slight vignette, maybe right, like 20%. Here's the before and here is the after. So there you go. I think I'm done. Now let's go ahead and option click the first layer or alt click, and we can see here's the before and here's the after. I've enhanced my image. I brought the viewer back into this area of the image here. And I think it's balanced out rather nicely. Now remember, I can always come back down here to this smart object, and remember there's an embedded raw file here, so if I double click this I can go back and retweak the initial settings, which is really nice. And then when I'm done, I can just use the shortcut Command or Control S to save it, or come up here and click Save. And then when I go back into Lightroom, we'll see my new edit. Then I can always open it back up again in Photoshop, and if I need to do additional work on it, I can do that. Well, there you go, everyone. This is called Enhancing the Image, Recovering Light and Saturation. I hope you enjoyed this one. And I can see that area right up there. I would definitely need to clone out in a further edit. But anyway, there it is. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today. If you did, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and if you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe, click that bell notification icon. Then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll be notified about it. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly, and I'll see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing.